Brothers and sisters who are there, welcome, very warm welcome to all of you, and a very warm welcome to our esteemed guest, Brother Qasim Rahman Khan, who is the ex-Minister for Minority Affairs in India, the Union of India. He has also been who has had the Waqf portfolio under his charge, and he's been almost 40 years with experience of Awqaf in India. So he comes with a very rich experience in many sectors of the Waqf sector. He has also been involved with some special amendments to the Awqaf Act in India, and we'd like to hear from him about the investment and the management of Awqaf in India. So, Brother, Your Excellency, Brother Rahman Khan, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Brothers and sisters, I am thankful to all of you for joining on discussions on the Awqaf in India. I am thankful to Brother Zainulabuddin Qazi for organizing this Zoom conference to know more about Awqaf in India, its working. And let me briefly introduce to you our Awqaf in India. The definition of Awqaf, can we go on the slides, please? The definition of Awqaf in the Waqf Act is Waqf is an inalienable charitable endowment under Islamic law, which typically involves donating building, plots, land, or other assets for Muslim religious or charitable purpose with no intention of reclaiming the assets. Basically, whatever is dedicated by any person with an object for the religious and charitable purpose is a waqf, and it is dedicated to God. That is the definition of Awqaf in the Act in India. The history of Awqaf legislation is over 200 years old. In fact, during the British India also, the Waqf legislation was there in a different form, but not in a unified form. But now, from 1954 onwards, after independence, India has tried to do a separate Waqf Act. We have about 600,000 Waqf institutions in India. And we are also this 600,000 Waqf institutions hold about 3,000 hectares of identified agriculture land, urban land, mosque, burial grounds, and other charitable institutions which comes under the purview of the Waqf. And the Waqf Act mandates that respective state, and we have provisional governments, we have 32 provisional governments, should conduct periodical survey of the Waqf in the respective state. The government has to conduct the survey and notify them in the official gazette and publish a list of Awqaf in the state. So it is mandatory for the state to get periodical survey. The Waqf Act, the present Waqf Act is called the Waqf Act of 1995, was amended in the year 2013, and we brought several changes in the Waqf Act. Particularly, the main changes we have brought is that illegal occupation and if Waqf property will be a criminal offense and punishable with a imprisonment of 2 years and a fine. So this is a major amendment, and we have created tribunals for settling the dispute between the Awqaf and the other people, and the Awqaf and between two mutawallis, two managements and all that. There is a tribunal. Earlier that used to go to civil courts, but now civil courts are barred, and now all litigations will go to the tribunals. And the state government also had the power, if this Waqf board is not functioning properly, to supersede the board for a temporary period and then restore the board. Next. Every state has a board, which is a statutory board. Every state has to form a board, and the board is members are elected and also are nominated, partially elected, partially nominated. And also at the central union level, there is a central Waqf council to supervise all the Waqf boards in the country. And the chairman of the central Waqf council will be the chairman of the minister for Awqaf and the minority affairs. And this central Waqf council issues periodical guidance and also directives for proper management of the Waqf institution in the country. The next slide, please. Each Waqf, when I said 6,000 Waqf, 600,000 Waqf, each Waqf is a separate entity managed by a mutawalli or a committee appointed by the Waqf board to manage those individual institutions. And the Waqf board, state boards have the power to remove a mutawalli or a committee in case of any mismanagement of the institution or violation of the provision of the Waqf Act, and can assume direct management for a period not exceeding 5 years. Next. Next slide. Next slide. I have said already at the central union level, there is Central Waqf Council to supervise the Waqf boards in the country and is chaired by Union Minister for Minority Affairs. The Central Waqf Council issues directions on protection of Waqf properties, violation of the Act, or misuse of the funds or property. Next. The Waqf Act, which was amended, as I said, in the year 2013, the functioning of the Awqaf in the country is regulated through the state Waqf board, which are autonomous bodies and partly elected, partly nominated, as I already mentioned. The state government can supersede the Waqf board also in case of mismanagement. Yes. Next. The Waqf Act mandates the respective state government should conduct periodical survey in the state and notify them in the official gazette and publish in the list of Awqaf in the state. Again, next. No, next. Mutawalli or the committee has to ensure that the Waqf funds are utilized in accordance with the objective of the Waqif. Each Waqf has to present its audited annual accounts to the state board and pay 7% of its income as contribution to the board. The state government should establish Waqf tribunals to decide the dispute of all matters pertaining to Awqaf in the state. The power has been given to the district magistrate to implement the decision of the state Waqf board and the Waqf tribunals. The encroachment or illegal occupation of Waqf property in any offense is punishable with imprisonment for 2 years with fine. Next. The Waqf Act bars jurisdiction of civil court on all matters pertaining to Awqaf. The issue to be decided by the tribunals are appealable to the High Court and Supreme Court. The Waqf, the next. There is some.
The final one.
Is it final?
Still about 5 more slides.
And another last slide is there. The Waqf Act provides for commercial development of Waqf properties of each individual Waqf if there are viable commercial properties to enhance its revenue. So we have established a National Waqf Development Corporation as a public sector undertaking to develop the Waqf properties in the country as a financial company. Then we have brought, that is another change which we have brought in the Act is leasing of the Waqf properties. The Waqf boards are empowered to remove all types of encroachment of Waqf properties, especially where lease properties or the properties lease is ended. No Waqf properties can be sold or alienated. The Waqf properties can be leased for a period not exceeding 30 years. Any lease of Waqf properties by the mutually for a period more than 1 year requires permission of the state Waqf board and the state government. Leasing of the Waqf properties should be in accordance with the Waqf rules framed by the central government, what is called leasing rules. The lease rental should be based on the current market value of the property. In order to save the Waqf properties from encroachment and misuse, most of the states have declared Waqf properties as public properties under the Public Premises Act, and the laws applicable to public premises are applicable to the Waqf properties also. Yes, this is the last slide.
Okay, thank you, Jazakallah khairan. Very, very interesting to see that there's been so much of development of the Waqf sector there, and the regulations that govern the Waqf sector. The interesting point is that you mentioned that there are 600,000 Waqf institutions in India, which is quite an amazing feat. I think it's probably the largest number that I've ever heard in any of the countries. And India being a large Muslim minority country, it goes to show that that Waqf has been a very substantial part of Muslim community life in India. We have heard, for example, Indonesia having also very, very large number of hectares of Waqf property. And you mentioned you've got about 300,000 hectares of land. So let's hear what other people, other attendees in our chat room have in this webinar have got. Are there any questions that anybody would like to raise at this stage?
Hello?
Dr.
Yes,
Hisham.
Dr. Hisham, please come in.
Yes, thank you very much for this presentation, Your Excellency. Of course, India is known to have one of the largest number of awqaf properties in the world, and their potential is even greater than one can even roughly estimate. In 2008, I was really involved in some research on awqaf in India, and at that time, we found that there were around 490 registered waqf properties, plus the 600,000 acres of agricultural land, and the value that was declared to us was about $1.2 billion US, or the equivalent of $1.2 billion at that time. But the current market value is estimated to be, many-fold higher than this figure. Matter of fact, it could have been even in excess of $75 billion, with the potential of generating, much higher, more than $3 billion in revenue, although the annual income from these properties was a meager 2 billion rupees, or perhaps less than 2% return. But the issue here is that many of the awqaf were lost to government agencies, and you see, what concerns me now is what you mentioned, that some of these properties are now being put under government as public property. Wouldn't this make Awqaf more tightly under government control? Because one of the factors that dampened the interest and confidence of Awqaf has been the political interference and the excessive government bureaucracy in the control and management of Awqaf. And now, with the current and mostly violent wave of Islamic hatred or Islamophobia, there are big questions over the fate of the Waqf institution in India. Of course, these are major challenges. So what is the strategy that the Central Board of India is taking in order to counter these hostile attacks and to arrest the deterioration of the Waqf to a fatal end? This is my question, Your Excellency.
Brother Hashim, Dr. Hashim, I fully appreciate that you have been aware of all the problems and you have done research in 2008 of the Waqf, functioning of the Waqf in India. You have all the facts before you. But 3 or 4 questions I would like to highlight is, the first concern which you have said is declaring them as a public premises. It is not that the government, the property becomes public. You have deliberately, the country, the Muslims of India has asked to be included as public property because most of the Waqf institutions, Waqf properties are in legal occupation. So if it is a private Waqf or if it is not a public property, it is very difficult to remove the encroachment and take the property back. So if it is a public property, if it is deemed public property, then removing of encroachment which will be easy. So it is in that interest that they are been declared as public property, public premises. That is only in about 7 or 8 states, not in the entire country. We are trying to bring a separate enactment for the entire state. As far as the doubts which you have expressed about the what is general impression about India is about the Islamophobia and all that, is as far as the Waqf is concerned, there is very little interference from after the enactment of the Waqf Act. It is the entire Waqf is managed by the Muslims. In fact, in Act itself, it is mentioned that every person, every member, and even the officials and executives should be the Muslims to run the boards or in the Central Waqf Council. So it is entirely managed by the Muslims only. There is no interference as such, and not much interference. I can say that with my experience about 40 years in the Waqf is the thing. Government interference is, of course, there are certain properties which are disputed between the government and the Waqf. The government feels that they are not Waqf properties. The Waqf feels they are deemed Waqf properties. But our courts have recently, I'm happy to inform you, the Supreme Court has finally decided that once a Waqf is always a Waqf, and once it is dedicated, the ownership lies with Allah. So nobody can have ownership or not. So if it is, once it is declared as a Waqf property, it remains Waqf properties for all the times. So we have now retrieved lot of properties from the government, which was government was staying this Waqf after proving. So there is absolutely no fear of the government, much interference so far. I'm making it very clear so far, and even the present government is also not interfered. From 6 years, this government is there, the present government. There is no interference in they may not be taking the proactive interest as it used to be taken earlier. When I was the minister, the proactive way, we brought the amendment, we this thing and all that. But there is no interference as such. Most of the encroachment in India, most 90% I can say, by the Muslims only. Government is about 10%. And for the government also, we have brought an amendment in the act that if it is proved that the property is a Waqf property, that property has to be returned back to the Waqf within 6 months. It is the decision of the court. So these are all some of the protection we have taken. Board is formed, and majority of the members are elected members from the mutawallis, from the ulmas and all that. So there is considerable safeguard in the act, and so far we have not come across the interference. Of course, the usual political interference everywhere all over the world is there. It will be there, but that is not coming in the hindrance. Hindrance is development. We are not able to develop because it is a lot of encroachment. We have to remove the encroachment. For removing the encroachment, we have brought several changes in the act for ensuring the removing of encroachment.
Thank you. Jazakallah khairan. There are two questions here that some of our attendees are asking. One of it is, are you able to give some indication what's the total revenue yearly for all the Waqf and its distribution of its revenue? Any estimate of how much is
the estimate? The present revenue is not, as you said, it may be to an order of all over the country is about 3,000 to 4,000 crores.
Which is maybe if we can translate that into dollars. So you say say about $100 million roughly, not more $100 million roughly. Mm-hmm. And where is this distributed? How is
as I said,
the beneficiaries?
Each Waqf institution is an independent institution. It works for the purpose for which created. So, and that income has to be primarily spent on that purpose of the Waqf. If somebody has dedicated and he has laid down that the income should be spent for this, these are the charitable purpose, then whatever it is there, the rest of the income is spent. If the purpose is fulfilled, then there is the excess income that can be spent for other charitable activities like education, scholarship, everything.
You mentioned that these Waqfs are actually all decentralized. So, but the appointment of mutawallis is done by the state or the Waqf board.
No. The mutawallis, there are some hereditary mutawallis.
Okay.
Some of the trust, they would have mentioned that the mutawallis should be appointed according to this provision, either from the family or from a particular clan or something like that. Or they may mention some mutawallis. Most of the mutawallis are hereditary. And where there is no hereditary mutawallis, the board appoints a committee. And then if it is a local public is there, they become member and they elect the committee, and then that elected committee will run.
So the board does not have its own assets, its own Waqfs. All the Waqfs
board has no assets of its own.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Board can from the income purchase assets. If from its income, that is, boards get 7% revenue from the each Waqf and gives 1% to the Central Waqf Council. It retains 6%. Out of that, it runs the administration. Sometimes state governments also give some grants to the Waqf. Apart from that, the state Waqf board such as they don't own any property.
So the other question here is, what's the total human resources or staff managing the Waqfs in India? For example, the state Waqf board or union council, how many employees would they have? And then how many what would be the kind of employment of people throughout the 600,000 Waqfs?
You see, it depends from state to state. For example, if I can say in Karnataka Waqf board from which I come from, is about the 300 persons who are looking after this thing. Sometimes there are smaller work board also, and some even bigger work board. They don't have sufficient number of board has no sufficient income, so they may not be employing more people. So on an average, we can take 200 to 250 employees per each board.
Okay, Jasir, do you want to come in?
You have some question. My name is Muhammad Mira Jasir. I'm studying here in Malaysia, IIUM, International Islamic University. I'm also from Karnataka. I'm doing master's in Islamic finance. So my topic is Awqaf in India. So I have some questions. The first one is, what is your view regarding privatization of Awqaf administration in India? Is it feasible or not?
No, once you have made an enactment, unless you repeal the act, you cannot privatize the work.
I mean, privatization of administration.
What do you mean by privatizing the Waqf?
No, you mean
because the Waqf is private.
See, it is because the Waqf are public. There are other Waqf which is called Waqful Alal Awlad. They are private trust, private Waqf, which has nothing to do with the Waqf Act. The beneficiaries are only a family or some individuals. So that Waqf Act will not be applicable to them. So it is all public Waqf which is to be there. So naturally, how can there be a privatization? It can be privatization, can be by managing by the Muslims, and that they are managing even today.
Actually, my question is like we have different Muslim organizations. No, I mean NGOs at national level. Can we transfer the administration to them from government to them? Is it feasible? Is it?
Yes. See, the board is free to appoint an NGO as a mutawalli, as a committee. They can hand over the administration of Waqf to them, because there are several. For example, because you are in Karnataka, Central Muslim Association has been entrusted with certain management of certain Waqf institutions, and there are certain NGOs who are managing the Waqf institution, of course, by the approval of the board.
Thank you.
Okay.
My second question is, what is your view? I mean, what do you think about the future of Waqf in India? Like we are here in Malaysia, we see that they are using latest technologies like blockchain technology and different technologies to develop their Waqf properties. But when we see back in India, but we cannot find any such initiatives by the administration to develop the properties like this. What do you think about future of Waqf, development of Waqf in India?
The future of Waqf development in India depends on the Muslims of India, because my experience shows that the Muslims are not taking any interest. General public is not taking in the Waqf issues, though they are emotionally attached to a Waqf institution, but they are not showing any interest in seeing that the Waqf are managed properly. So if the community, if the Muslim themselves, the future of Waqf depends upon the Muslim itself. That is why I have started a foundation called Awqaf Foundation of India. My work in this foundation is to educate the common man, common Muslim, that he should feel that the Waqf property is a public property, it is a Muslim property, it is he is also one of the beneficiaries, and he should protect the property as he protects his own property. So that we have to develop. Once we develop that among the Muslim community who are the beneficiaries, then the future of Waqf is very safe.
Yeah.
Okay, Jazakallah. Okay, here's another question. How do the Waqf foundations maintain their relationship with the donors, with the Waqifin or Waqifun?
No, Waqif will be allowed, they may not be allowed.
Yes.
So Waqif has nothing to do. Waqif just is dedicated. Unless he assigns some duty in the Waqfnama, the Waqf deed, whatever we call. Otherwise, he has nothing to do with the Waqf.
But
Because
he
can interfere if his intentions are not carried out by the whoever is managing the work.
Okay.
Sometimes the donor, the Waqif himself, may be the Mutawalli.
Yes. Okay, Dr. Sami, you want to come in?
Yes, Wallahi. First of all, I would like to thank Excellency Mr. Rahman Khan. Refer to the Dr. Hisham questions. I have a question to Excellency about the state government. Can appoint the state Waqf board or cannot, especially if they are the state government non-Muslim. That's number one. Number two, about Mutawalli. You mentioned in your presentation, Excellency, that the state, the Waqf state board can remove the Mutawalli and appointed him if he has qualified. But do you have, for example, authority, this board authority can remove the Mutawalli, especially if this Waqf, private Waqf, this private Waqf not belongs to the state or not belongs to the charity foundation. I need also to ask about the private Waqf in India, especially in the mosque, in the schools, in the universities, especially about the heritage awqaf in India, like mosque Taj Mahal. This is the heritage mosque. This is Waqf heritage or not? I need to know, to understand some issues about this point, especially about the Taj Mahal Waqf. And the last point about the 7%. You mentioned in your presentation that the state Waqf board can get 7% from
the fees.
Contribution. Contribution.
Yes. Higher. Yes, contribution. Yes. 7% only.
Yes.
And other point about which state in India very active in awqaf management and investment. Can say Delhi or Bombay or any or other.
I see. For the last time,
Thank
will
you.
answer. Karnataka is the best managed Waqf board so far in the country. And for your other questions regarding the interference of the state government, whether if it is a non-Muslim, if there is no Muslim in the government. So the act provides that the board has to be constituted under certain, in section 14 mandate that all the members in the Waqf board should be Muslims. Even the chief executive officer who is appointed, who may be a government official, but he also should be a Muslim. So one thing is ensure that the entire management will be in the hands of Muslims. And the act also says if there are 13 members, 7 members are to be elected and the 6 are to be nominated. That means majority of the members in the board will be elected members, elected from different categories. Mutawallis will elect 2 members. The Muslim legal fraternity will elect 2 members. The Muslim members of the parliament elect among themselves 2 members. The Muslim members of the state legislature will elect again 2 members from them among the Muslim members. Even if there are no Muslim members, then the retired members also can be brought, but they should be the Muslims. So these are the, and then the state, there should be 2 ulamas from the 2 school of thought, that is from Shia and Sunni. There should be 2 school of thought. If in a state there are more than 50% of the Shia Waqf institution, there should be a separate Shia board and separate Sunni board. And these are the precautions which has been taken. As far as the Taj Mahal is concerned, now see, we have an act called Archaeological Act. That is ancient monuments of all the ancient monument in the Gadar, whether it is Muslim monument, Hindu monument, any other. If it is ancient archaeological, it comes under the provision of the Archaeological Act, archaeology. So that will be controlled, that it has to be maintained. Their heritage has to be maintained. So they will be managed by the archaeological department, not by the Waqf department. But if there is a religious to be done, for example, if in Taj Mahal there is a masjid, in Delhi there are several archaeological sites which are constructed by the Muslims. But if there is a religious place, that will come under the Waqf. For example, Delhi's Jama Masjid, which is one of the famous Jama Masjid in the country, which is, though it is an archaeological monument, because everyday prayers are going, Waqf boards manage it. So this is the bifurcation we have got.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Your Excellency, you mentioned that you've also developed the National Development Corporation.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is all about?
As we said, as our Dr. Hashim has also said, that our present income from Waqf is very meager. It is not even 0.1% of the actual income we have to get it. The reason is that government is not going to fund you for development of the Waqf properties. And the Waqf board doesn't have the finances to develop. Each individual Waqf property is worth several. Sometimes there are properties with each single property is valued at $1 billion, but it is lying idle. It is not being developed because you need resources to develop. That is why we brought two important changes in 2013 is that we can give these properties on lease, and they should be developed. And so development, how do you raise the finance? Waqf board as a statutory body, it cannot raise finance. The Mutawalli will not be able to raise finance. So we have, in 2013, we established a National Waqf Development Corporation at the national level. It will be a commercial organization to develop Waqf properties. Yes, when I was in the government, I floated this idea. And in fact, we wanted to have a tie-up with the Islamic Development Bank. In fact, Dr. Ahmad Mahmoud Ali was then the chairman of the Islamic Development Bank. He visited and we had an extensive discussion to link Awqaf with international bodies. And in the end, I will conclude how we can link the entire Awqaf development in the world as a body, not as a segregated this thing, for ultimately development, enhance income. So this corporation is set up with a laudable objective, but somehow the successive, the present government has not evinced keen interest on that. But that stands at that.
There are quite a few other questions that are coming in. So one of the questions is, how many Muslims are benefiting out of all these Waqf properties? If you want to put it in a ratio, then how many Muslims have come out from their underprivileged situation because of Waqf?
You see, the main problem of Indian Muslims, as all of you know, is the education. And because of education, educationally we are very backward. You may be knowing there is a committee appointed by our government and Dr. Manmohan Singh that is called Sachar Committee. Mm-hmm. It has studied the entire report only for Muslims, how the Muslims, what is their status, socio-economic status and education status. And that committee came out with a very voluminous report which said that Muslims' educational standards is much lower than the most underprivileged scheduled caste people. So from that time onwards, we are trying to do so many things, including the Waqf and all that, scholarship programs and all that. But educationally, we are very backward. So some of the surplus institutions are trying to give scholarship, and some of the institutions are running educational institutions, set up educational institution. For example, in 1980s, there was not a single medical college managed by the Muslims. Today, we have more than 20 medical colleges in the country. Most of the NGOs are doing it, and some of the two Waqf institutions have established medical colleges, engineering colleges. So some awareness is coming.
Okay. If some of the Waqfs are not able to pay the 7% to the board, is there any way to get how do they get their support?
No, if they don't income, they need not pay. They don't have an income, they need not pay.
Okay. This question from Dr. Benazuz from Algiers University. What are the most important Waqf investments with good performance?
No, there is no Waqf investment. See, some of them who have developed the commercial properties, most of the Waqf investment in the commercial properties. They don't have surplus investment in the securities and all that. They have to develop their properties. So today, we have estimated that in India, to develop the commercial property, the return, the investment is just the investment on construction. Land value is very high today. Land value, for example, a square feet of land is cost 20,000 rupees, whereas the cost of construction per square feet is only 3,000. But once it is developed, the value becomes 20,000, 23,000, and the return will be on 23,000. Not though you invest 2,000 or 3,000, your return will be on 23,000 because its value enhanced. So now some of the properties Waqf invested on by Central Waqf Council donation or loans, they have invested in the commercial properties, and their income has gone 100-fold.
Okay, excellent. So, Brother Hassan Mahfouz from the IDB would like to discuss the potential to collaborate with the IDB to develop real estate Waqf properties in India. I suppose that he can contact you, and maybe you could have some collaboration, and hopefully there could be some cooperation and some investment from IDB in India. I don't know whether there have been any projects that have already been done. You may know, Your Excellency, if there have been any done, but if not, then there could be still possibilities, because the IDB has got this Awqaf Property Investment Fund, which they've done many projects all over the world. Okay, so that's something you can take forward. Are there any safeguards from dissolving the acts of the Waqf from the government, since we see a lot of amendments from the current government? I don't know, I don't really understand that, but I think the issue is about the protection of the Waqfs. Is that something that is kind of sacred and embedded within the Waqf Acts, that all the Waqfs are protected, well protected, and that they cannot be dissolved, they cannot be usurped by any government institution or private people or through corruption or something like that?
See, look, as far as the protection is concerned, I may say with all confidence that some of the decisions of our Supreme Court in the Waqf cases are very, very important. And as I cited earlier, the Supreme Court has given that once a Waqf property is always a Waqf property. There's a recent incident in Andhra Pradesh where they fought. They had almost, the government has usurped about 5,000 acres of Waqf land as government land. But the case was fought, it went up to Supreme Court, and then Supreme Court held that it is a characteristic of Waqf, it is a Waqf, its characteristics cannot change, and directed the state government to return back all the 5,000 acres and also whatever income they had generated, about 20 crores, they were the government given back to the Waqf. So we have some very good safeguard as per the our judiciary is very strict in this, and then so far almost all the judgments on Waqf has gone well with the Waqf and Waqf board. Regarding IDBI, I told you earlier, I had intensive negotiations when I was in office. Even before when I was the deputy chairman of the upper house, I had intensive meeting. I have conducted several conferences. In fact, I had relations with. We wanted to set up an institution on the lines of Tabung Haji to merge Waqf and the Hajj management. And I had long discussions with the earlier president of the IDBI, Dr. Ahmad Muhammad Ali. He has visited 3 times to India. He had then meetings with the then finance minister and Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, who later on became the president of India. So then all that went on when our government was there and was taking interest. So it all depends upon the person who heads and who takes interest, whether it is a Waqf institution or an individual institution. So individuals are very important. That is why I feel in any Waqf management, and some vision has to be developed. And now, as far as the international cooperation is concerned, you see, there are like IDBI, it has very potentiality to invest in the Waqf institutions. And particularly India, it has got high potentiality. But if there are certain legal restrictions, or I don't think there is our FDI policy is also very liberal. They can invest in India on the real estate development also, and there is a good potentiality as far as the development of Waqf properties in India. By any international investment is welcome, and that can be a big potentialities.
Just as a follow-up on that National Development Corporation, has it been successful? Is there any success story about it? Any major developments that have taken place, major monies that have come in from the public?
No, not. I told you that we started 2013. We had started the work, and then after the UPA government demitted the office, that Waqf Development Corporation is remaining stagnant. Dormant? I can say dormant.
Okay.
But I see a big potentiality if it is revived. I am trying to pursue through the Waqf Foundation.
Who are the owners of that National Development Corporation?
It is the government and the public. Mm-hmm. Government has invested about 40% of the capital.
Mm-hmm. And has public invested the 60%?
Public has not. We wanted to go for public, and then we could not go there by that time now.
Okay. There's a question here about, you mentioned about all the Waqf boards being Muslim, and I think somebody has done a bit of research on your websites to see that there is one particular board in Chandigarh where there's a Shri Ajit Balaji Joshi as chairman. So he wants to know how, can you explain this?
This Chandigarh is a union territory. It is not a state. And it has a particular history. So it is the government, whoever holds the government office, he will be, because there is no elected government for Chandigarh. It is not a state. The governor of Punjab will be the administrator. So only officials manage it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Dr. Mustafa, do you want to come in?
There is Mr. Ayaz Lashari.
Okay, after Mr. Ayaz.
Okay. Mr. Ayaz, Brother Ayaz Mahmood.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Thank you for your good and excellent presentation. I'm from Pakistan, and nice to see you. on this presentation, through this presentation. My question is, what are the three major problems faced by Waqf India, and what is the nature of Indian Waqf? In Pakistan, there are shrines, there are mosques, there are or Waqf properties related to whether shrines or mosques. What is the nature of Indian Waqf? And there is also Pakistan. In Pakistan, there is a weekly trust board. After partition, when Hindus and Sikhs brothers migrated to India and Indian Muslim migrated to Pakistan, they left their properties. And in Pakistan, the properties left by Hindu brothers and Sikh brothers, there is a weekly trust board. This is called Hindu Awqaf. Is these properties left by Muslims in India are included in your Indian Waqf board or not? So question is, like a weekly trust, we have Hindu properties and Sikh properties. So these properties left by Muslims are included in your Waqf board. And what are the problems and what is the nature of Waqf in India? Thank you, brothers. Thank you.
You see, your first question was there are three major problems. You see,
Yes.
as far as India and Pakistan is concerned, the problems are common. Because
Yes.
we were one country earlier, the problems are common. So whatever problems you face, we also face. What we face, you also face. The major problems which we are facing here is encroachment, lower rents. The Muslims have 90% occupied because there is nobody to supervise the properties, because real estate is a valuable thing. And removing encroachment and developing is the major problems. And then usually when you manage an institution by the Muslims, there will be a lot of problems created by the Muslims themselves, not by others. And then there is a difference of, ulamas and then school of thought. That is the major problems. That otherwise there is no major problems as such. These are the problems within the community. The next you saw the question is whether, what is the next question you asked about?
Nature of Waqf in India, whether it
The
is
nature of work, that is same, shrines, mosques, monuments, and Eidgahs, burial grounds. These are the nature of work, which, and some people might have developed and donated some buildings for charitable purpose. So anything which is developed, which given for charitable purpose, nature of work is same as in Pakistan and India. One of the major questions you asked about the evacuees, that is the property left by the people who migrated from Pakistan to India, from India to Pakistan. That is, this happened, major thing happened this in the state of Punjab, because Punjab was divided into India and Pakistan. A large extent of property, Indian Punjab, was the Muslim who have left that mosque, burial grounds, Eidgahs, or shrines and all that. So what happened in the beginning, there were hardly any Muslims left in that territory of Punjab in the beginning. But slowly, the Punjab, then there was, the Punjab consists of Punjab, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, and Union Territory of Chandigarh and Delhi. These are the areas affected by partition and the properties left. Now gradually, see, for example, in Chandigarh, in Punjab and that region, more than 10,000 mosques were abandoned. 10,000 mosques were abandoned, and large sections of the burial grounds, which was huge in acres together, they were all abandoned. So people who have come from the other side migrated, they occupied it because there is nobody to control. There was no Waqf Act then, nothing was there. So they have occupied. But slowly, recently, from various, gradually, about 2,000 mosques have been come back to Waqf. And then most of the properties now have come back to Waqf. And we are trying to remove the encroachment now. Now, almost all the properties have been declared as Waqf properties. Whatever left, there is no vacuum properties are given to somebody else. So there is a separate board in Punjab, and it is all been taken and then it been administered. Slowly, they are all Waqf properties.
Okay, I think we've got just a few minutes left. I'm going to ask Dr. Mustafa for his question. There is another question about whether Waqfs are tax exempt, and perhaps in conclusion, we'll ask you to just give an overview of your thoughts about the future. So Dr. Mustafa, if you can come in quickly.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. for your presentation. I'll go directly with my questions. I have many questions, but I'll say 2 questions only, inshallah. What is the yield of the public assets? Is it as expected? If not, please tell us what is the challenges that you faces in investment. Is it in management or legally challenges? This is the first question. The second, the second question, please. What are the instruments that you use to invest the assets? Is it traditional instruments like other countries, the rent for the properties, or you have a distinguished instrument that can make a profit maximization? Thank you very much.
See, your first question regarding the yield on the real estate. As I said earlier, that on the real estate belong to the Waqf, the yield is very high. Because I said, I gave an example. Suppose a commercially viable property is there in a metro or a big cities, which is very expensive, valuable land. If it is developed with suppose if I'm just giving an hypothetical example, suppose the value of the land is about 20,000 rupees. And the investment per square feet you have to do for development is about 2,000 or 3,000 rupees per. So ultimately that value of the land and building put together becomes 23,000, and the yield you get is on 23,000, though you are investing at 3,000 rupees. That is why there is a large potentiality of making very good income returns if it is invested in real estate. That is one thing. And then the second thing is the instrument which is to be developed is by lease of the properties. That is, the Waqf Act prescribed that no property can be sold or mortgaged, but it can be leased for not more than 30 years. So you will get back your investment and a huge return, margin of return. As a chartered accountant, I can say we have worked out that a huge margin is possible in the work. There is in no other real estate investment, the return will not. Sometimes in real estate, a 5% return is considered to be a very good return. But in Waqf properties, you can get 10 to 15% return on investment.
We have Jazakallah for that. We've just got a few minutes left. Very quickly, there's a question: why Muslims prefer trust laws than Waqf acts? Is that a reasonable question there from?
I want you to repeat your question, please.
Why are the trust laws in India used for Waqf, or is the Waqf Act used mainly for making Waqfs?
See, even if your Waqf is even registered under the Indian Trust Act, if it has a charitable purpose and it is for the Muslim charitable purpose, it comes under the Waqf, even though if it is a trust. Or okay. Even if you establish a society under the Societies Registration Act, but the purpose and object of the society is religious and charitable purpose, then that also comes under the Waqf.
Okay. Okay,
so,
I hope that answers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are the Waqfs tax exempt?
Yes, there is no tax on Waqf.
Okay.
Like like trust.
Yeah. Okay.
If they have to deploy the income, at least 75% income on the object.
Okay. Shukran, Jazakallah. Maybe as a last take on the future of Awqaf, locally in India and also internationally? What's your perception of what's happening in the Awqaf sector?
You see, it is the most neglected sector. As I mentioned earlier, it is a very great potential there in the entire international level if there is a cooperation. And that cooperation, because certain countries, because we have to raise the investment, because that is the massive investment is possible in the work, and that investment can come from all parts of the world. And whichever country, whether it's India or Pakistan or Malaysia, wherever there is a potentiality of development, work should be looked as the property belongs to God, because that is the definition that He is the owner. So we have to inculcate among everybody the sense of sacrifice and investment in the work property, and then that will give because these properties are unexploited, so the Muslims are not able to benefit for their socio-economic development and educational development. There are poor countries, they don't have resources. For example, if we invest properly and develop work property, we don't need any help from any government. That is the potentiality in India. Mm-hmm. So international bodies like in Islamic Development Bank and other, even World Bank, we should pursue to lend for development of the work properties.
Do you think that there's a need for some kind of a forum where especially Muslim minority countries should be involved in developing this whole idea of the Waqf?
No, there is definitely, I see a great hope if all the Muslim countries developed only on one objective to develop the work properties and to improve the economic condition of the community, and some well-to-do countries who have the potentiality to invest can invest in the countries where there is potential. They are not, local people are not able to invest, they can think. So we can, a federal system or a whatever, this thing, IDBI could take a lead in this. I am sure that is what I had proposed to IDBI. I visited several times to IDBI, I had long discussions with IDBI. I think they have a department also, and that they have to further expand it, and they will also have to amend certain their own rules, and some countries have to amend their own rules. And there is a very good potentiality for example, IDBI can come in a big way to invest in the National Work Development Corporation of India and become a major investment, so that it can raise resources. It can invest its resources in good. That investment will yield good returns.
Okay.
From the investment point of view.
We've now run out of time, and we'd just like to say Jazakallah khairan to you. I know it has been a bit of a late notice to you to prepare for this presentation, but Jazakallah khairan to you, and I'm sure we've learned a lot from you this evening, and I'm sure a lot of the other members who have participated in this seminar or webinar have learned a lot about Awqaf in India, and I'm sure that there is a lot more to learn. There are a lot more other questions that people have raised and would like to know, and I hope that we could engage sometime in the future again. And with those few words, we'd like to, if Dr. Sami Salahat would like to say some concluding words here, and then we would end off the session.
No, just I want to say to Mr. Rahman Khan, Jazakallah khair, may Allah blessing you and our brothers in India, and inshallah we'll make inshallah a new program and to learn from each other inshallah, and Jazakallah khair for this benefit information you give to us. And thank you, Dr. Mr. Zainur, for a good management.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Okay, we will close up this session. We will recite Surah Al-Asr together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal-Asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Jazakallah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Thank you, brother.
And thanks to all the
Thank you all.
participants and attendants that have attended as well. Jazakallah
Thank you.
khair.
Today, tonight is the last night, inshallah. We'll continue, inshallah, after Eid, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Okay,
Barakallah feek. Thank you, Mr. Rahman. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're not going to leave you. Okay.
Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Barakallah.